The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Father Andrew Kinstetter. Hi, Father Andrew.
Good evening, Dom.
And Thomas Sanherho. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Dom.
So our first tech topic of the week is got to be the big news that's out there. It's political news, but we're not going to talk the politics of it necessarily. We might swerve by it a little bit, but we want to talk about the big election, the presidential election, and technology surrounding it. And most specifically, this week is in case you didn't see, Iowa had its first in the nation caucus vote, the selection of the Democratic candidate. Obviously, the non-incumbent party is the one that everyone's watching. And it was a disaster. Like, this is the level of disaster where they're saying, well, sorry, Iowa, you're no longer going to be the first in the nation. I mean, there's that level of, which is a big blow to Iowa, and changes perhaps how they campaign in 4 years and what they say. And so this is a big deal. This could affect our nation in unforeseen ways. So what happened? They used this. They were going to use this new app for iPhone and Android. So it's a cross-platform app that would tally the votes. In a caucus, you don't go into a voting booth and punch a card. A caucus is people gather in a room and they come to a decision, and someone tallies the votes of the people in the room, and then that gets passed on. It's a much more communal, collaborative process. So they were going to use an app to do the tallying and submitting instead of paper, which has to be driven and phoned in and driven and all that sort of stuff. Well, the app didn't work. So let's talk about this. We still don't, as we record this Wednesday evening, we don't have a definitive winner yet, which is a bad thing because everyone's moved on to New Hampshire by now. And they're still trying to point fingers. And some people have said, oh, it's bad coding. Other people have said, oh, no, it was a bad infrastructure. So what do you guys think of this, and what does it say about using this sort of technology? Because people have been saying for years, oh, we should be voting using our iPhones and Android phones instead of going to voting booths because we'll get more people to participate. What do you think of all this, and what does it say about that desire? What do you think, Thomas?
I think if you hired a company that was more than a year old, that had open face investors, and that you actually knew who the board members were, and there's a lot of ifs here that were really, really poorly handled. I think that if we did this in reality, in a real way, it would work. I would be completely behind it if we really sat down and made this part of an infrastructure move. But to make it something that seems so shot from the hip and secretive the entire way along, I think that's really the big issue here, is that you have a company called Shadow Inc. that is supported primarily by an investment company called Acronym, and it just baffles me that this is not an Inspector Gadget episode. Right. How did this happen?
Political patronage seems to be the up and down the line here. Like this right. was they didn't go out and hire Google. A company known for infrastructure and creating apps. Like if the Iowa Democratic Party had said to Google, hey, can you create an app for us for iPhone and Android that would tally? I mean, this is not rocket science. Tallying votes is pretty simple, problem to solve here, and securely transmit them, which that's the big deal is to have a secure yet transparent process. And they seem to have failed in that in every way. Father, what's your take on both this and on the idea of using apps for our democratic process?
I think it's a good idea in general, but I mean I have to agree with Thomas that this has to be way more thought out and done well. I was reading through some of those articles, and I mean, along with what they said was coding issues and a buggy app and a laggy app, and the fact that the app was crashing, and it even just said that some people just blatantly didn't use the app.
Right.
So I think
three quarters of the people that had the app installed didn't use it.
Yeah.
That's
so there's bigger issues than just if it was a faulty code, or, bad servers or whatever. There's also just a lack of appropriate communication and teaching on how to use the app. If people weren't comfortable using the app to begin with and just decided we're not going to use it, then the whole process falls apart because not everybody's on board.
Yeah,
that sounds a lot like what goes on in the church. Frankly, as those who have worked in the church, where we have
so true. Though.
we roll out technology initiatives, we try to get people to use it, and people go, "Yeah, I'm not going to do that," and and they go their own way, or they don't bother learning how to use it. I used to work in a diocese and in an office where we would try to get people to use technology, and it often felt like that. So yeah, it's this. We feel this in various areas. I guess a culture. We need a culture change.
Yeah, you got to have buy-in from the people, and you've got to have them, and you've got to make it simple enough that even non-experienced users are going to be comfortable using this app. If it looks, incredibly just not well put together, and the user interface is all kind of wonky, I mean, people are just gonna not use it, and then again it falls apart and doesn't work. So I think there's potential, but there's bigger issues than just the tech side of things.
Well, and I think in a high stakes environment like this too, people are going to immediately drop malfunctioning tech and go back to the way that worked. Right. And that's the thing you have to remember is that that option still needs to be there, and it still needs to be 100% functional until the new thing is so reliable that that's the thing that everybody falls back to. And because you saw a lot of people were going back and they flooded the line and they didn't have enough. So it was on the back end of things, when people dropped away from the app, they weren't ready to receive calls because they were expecting people to just use the app. And it shows a lack of really well thought out process all along the line here.
I mean, it feels like a case study in what not to do with election technology. For all of we've been criticizing Diebold and some of these other companies, these big companies that have been trying to create voting machines, electronic voting machines. Oh, and they've got flaws and the potential security holes. I mean, they started the process a couple months ago, according to some reports. They were it was hastily put together, according to some reports. Hastily put together by people lacking adequate technical experience, rushed out the door in less than 2 months' time. Instead of going through proper App Store review processes through Apple and Google, they used beta testing platforms like TestFlight to distribute the software, which is not how you're supposed to distribute even silly game apps, never mind something that's at the bedrock of our democracy. I mean, so it's not like you said.
And there, I think to comment on that too, because a lot of people would say, "Oh, well, you don't want this to be a public app or things." There are ways to get your app tested and go through the App Store code without having it made public, and you can do that. It literally just takes a call to to an official representative, and you can get that done. It's not that hard of a process.
Big corporations already do this. They have internal apps that go through the App Store. I mean, there's already a process in Apple and in Google for that, for internal apps, but also have to go through the review process, which just make sure that they work, that they don't have any malware in them, they don't cause basic problems in the phones that they're installed on. I mean, just simple stuff like that. It just, the whole thing, it makes me worry about this idea. I get that eventually we're going to get to a point where you will probably vote not on a paper ballot, but on an electronic device. That things will be tallied instantaneously and all of that. And that's desirable. We don't want to have to wait hours and hours or even days to tally votes. We want to, but we have so much at stake, and there's so much that could go wrong that it has to be bulletproof. It has to be 100%, not even 99%. It has to be 100% bulletproof, because if there's even the hint that somebody hacked an election to win, and people are going to try.
As soon as it happens, it's obviously going to be a target. But
right.
I think what you have here is the Iowa caucus wanted to be cutting edge, and rather than investing in being cutting edge, they wanted to do it quickly, and they cut a lot of corners, and they made bad decisions in cutting corners, and they didn't think about the fact that what they wanted was like a PR piece to say, look at how awesome we are, that we're ahead of everybody and doing this thing. And it has bitten them very, very badly because of that. And so I really do think they deserve to lose their spot as the front runner. I don't think that the app is the problem, and that they can't just blame it on the app. I think they deserve to lose their spot as the front runner because of the way this went down.
Right. But as I was saying before, that will have, from a political point of view, have repercussions, just because the way candidates campaign in Iowa for months leading up to the caucus means that they campaign in such a way as to appeal to Iowa Heartland voters, and if they're not appealing to them, then they're going to change the way that they campaign, the way that they try to appeal to folks. So that does have wider implications. Frankly, I think, and I'll just make a little political point. All of the primaries should occur on one day. We are at a technological stage in our country where we could have one election day. We do it for the regular election, the general election. We could do it for the primaries, but that's not how we're doing it. I seem to recall, and I don't know if either of you remember, but in 2012, during that presidential election, on election night itself, the general election, that the Republican operation ran into major problems with their Get Out the Vote campaign technologically, that they had a failure, and some attributed Mitt Romney's loss in 2012 in part to that major failure. Do you guys recall hearing about that back then? I don't know if it might be obscure.
I don't remember hearing about it.
Okay,
but you always, in every one of these election cycles, there's some tech problem, and
someone's going to blame.
Yeah, it's just finger pointing. It's like, oh, it wasn't our fault. It was the computer's fault. It's like such a convenient way to do things.
Right. Well, and in fact, in the last election, a lot of people, there was a lot of vague finger pointing at maybe somebody in Russia did something to the election to let Donald Trump win, and in some ways, that's the other part. The other half of this problem is the vague technology boogeyman, where technology is still this scary black box, and we like to trot it out as a tool to use to scare people to do what we want them to do. So that's the downside of another downside of the Iowa caucus result here, which is it causes people who are scared of technology to continue to be scared of technology, and even when things are fixed and they're done properly.
But I think there's a way to keep moving forward with it, though, is you, at least for the time being, you use the technology, but you have the hard copy backups, and you have, and so you do both in conjunction, with the app results being, super quick, but then the paper ballots and everything can confirm that until we get to a point where we are, I guess, culturally, confident in the security of these devices.
Yeah. Well, and then you also you look at a situation like this where the code started throwing flags almost immediately. You pull the plug on that there. Just pull the plug on it, move back to the system the way it was before, and we're done. And that's what they didn't account for that. Like, what do we do if this does fail? And they weren't ready for that situation. And that's where we have got to get to that point. You've got to be, as a teacher, that's one of the things that you do. Like, okay, my PowerPoint is not going to work because my projector bulb went out. What do I do now? Well, I'm glad I have a backup plan because I've got 30 kids sitting here staring at me, and I have something to do still with them,
And you also need transparency. Like, these companies can't be just, coming up with this magic app that magically does all these things. We need to know what security is behind it and what they're doing and what's the process. And because that instills confidence in us as the users and the voters as well.
They need to be open sourced so everyone can examine the code, which doesn't make it less secure. It makes it more secure when you open source the code. And one of the things, Thomas, you were saying like about you got to know when to pull the plug. That's part of the sunk cost fallacy, which is we're already too invested in this. We've gone too far. We can't back out now. That thinking has literally killed many people. Like climbers to Mount Everest, for instance. Yeah, we're almost to the top. We're almost there. We don't turn back now, said the guy whose body is now a frozen husk on top of the mountain. So you gotta know when to say, okay, you pull the plug. We're moving on we're going back to the old ballots. Do you think we should ever get to a day where voting is as easy as sitting on your couch and picking up your phone and opening an app and voting? Or should voting always be an act where like it requires an investment of your time and action?
I think it needs an investment of time. Otherwise, I fear voting would just become like Twitter, of people just bouncing their own opinions and not even knowing the issues and not even knowing the candidates, and just like actually having to physically go to a ballot, a place where you can vote. That automatically says that you are putting time to go to the local public gym or wherever you're going to vote. And the fact that you're already putting time to go there implies that you've already at least considered what you're going to do and why you're going to do it, versus, I'll just pull up this app on my phone and, this guy he's got nice hair, so I'm going to vote for him. Or,
right.
I think you need that investment. The whole point of the election process is we need informed voters, not just voters.
Right.
So the challenge there is, how do you get the majority of people to get informed and to care?
Right. That's a bigger thing.
You make voting day a day off.
Right.
Official holiday.
National holiday.
Why is this not a not a thing? I don't understand.
Well, and to what you're saying, Father, I've long been someone who has not bemoaned low voter turnout. Not because I don't think people shouldn't vote. It's that if you don't feel like you have a handle on who you should vote for, then don't vote. Don't just go and pick somebody at random. I want, like you said, informed voters. That's what we need. So I think going out to a ballot, to a voting precinct or a voting location is akin to people saying, I'm going to go to church, as opposed to just sit on my couch and talk to God. Well, it's really easy to just sit on your couch and talk to God, isn't it? And sometimes we do that more or less than sometimes we're watching TV while we're talking to God. And whereas there's an intentionality. I get up, I get dressed, I put on nice clothes, I go out the door, I get myself in a certain disposition and go and do it. And I think our civic duty of voting should be like that. So I'm all for having technology eventually in the voting precincts, but I think we should still have voting precincts. That's at least my point of view. So another part of the election tech question that's been going around is how social media platforms can prevent manipulation of the voting populace through disinformation. This was a big thing in 2016. Still, it has been ever since then, the intervening 4 years, where there's a lot of disinformation spread online on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and different platforms have taken different approaches. Facebook came out with a policy where they will label stuff as being false, but they're not going to take down ads from candidates whether they assert something true or false or not. Whereas YouTube has taken a different tack. They have said that they're going to be more proactive about combating disinformation. They're going to remove content that has been technically manipulated or doctored in a way that misleads users, beyond taking clips out of context. But they'll also use the algorithm to hide content, essentially. I mean, there's so much content on YouTube that unless the algorithm surfaces it for you when you search for it or it recommends it, you're never going to find it. And that actually came up for us at SQPN recently when Jimmy Akin was doing an episode of Mysterious World on the Flat Earth theory, and he was trying to research what do people who believe in the Flat Earth theory say, and found it very difficult to find their content because Google, the search engine, and YouTube, owned by Google, were hiding the content from people to save us from it. So what do you think about this? I mean, where do you think the line should be drawn? Is this something that should they be protecting us? Or is this a big enough problem where, yes, we do need help to prevent, our well-meaning elderly aunt who isn't as sophisticated about technology from passing around memes that are full of baloney? Or is this censorship on a non-governmental censorship? What do you think on this one?
I don't know. This one's a tough one because algorithms are an important part of the way the internet works, and it's an important part of the way search works. The more and more I teach about AI, and the more I learn myself about machine learning and algorithms and the way they work, there is an implicit bias already put into them, and that's kind of the way that they function. And it really depends. There is a lot of bad information out there, and that bad information gets worse when you give it a platform that it didn't have before. And I'll just give an example. For me personally, this is not bad information, but this is the way information works. Like I do mini figure model painting, and it took me forever to learn how to do any of this stuff. So when I first started out, it took me like 5 years to figure some of this stuff out because I had to figure it out on my own or go talk to people at my local gaming shop. Well, now you can go online, find a Reddit community that's about mini painting and learn all that stuff in like 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to be as good a painter as some of these guys if you just have the patience and the manual dexterity to do it. And it's the learning curve is so different because of the internet. But the same thing is also true for bad information, where if you have a certain predisposition to be sort of conspiracy theorist or sort of super granola, live my life without anything that I'm putting in my body kind of stuff, there are platforms out there now that really support people getting that information across. And so I don't know, it's a difficult thing to say, like these companies that support that provide that platform, what is their responsibility to minimize the effect that their platform has in spreading the misinformation that's out there?
I'm a bit torn too. I'm a strong advocate for the fact that I don't think that we as human beings should rely on technology in order to receive the information that we desire. In the sense that, if I'm only going to Facebook to find and determine my own opinions, I'm basically aligning my opinions with whatever junk is being thrown out on Facebook. So we have to be very careful as just human beings on allowing all the information kind of processed through our own informed and mature filter to then determine our opinions. And we can't just follow the current curve on the Twitter trends or whatever. And so I guess I don't really, I think, I don't know if they should or shouldn't try to limit the false information, but there should be a good avenue to receive good information. And that should, of course, be the major news outlets. But unfortunately, I know a lot of those are biased and they don't put out quite the correct information. But, so we're kind of facing that not just on YouTube and Twitter, but we're facing it, on all the news outlets that we get our news from. So, I don't know if there is a solution to a news outlet that is giving us accurate and unbiased information. And we have to kind of all receive that as humans and process it and talk it out amongst, the people around us and kind of distill it into to inform our own conscience and our own decisions. But I think if you hide all the bad information, that could cause problems too. You can get conspiracy theorists all, going crazy about all the hidden information too. And
then who determines what's good and what's bad? Because sometimes that's what's true is a matter of interpretation,
right?
Of your particular slant toward an issue, and that can be a problem. Like pro-life views have sometimes been suppressed because that's not true. No, that's true. We've got the data. Nope, not true. We're suppressing it.
Yep.
Well, yeah, and from a completely Catholic standpoint, the amount of pro-family, pro nuclear family, father, mother, children, the amount of science that's coming out right now about that, about how important it is to have a father and mother and that be a stable relationship in a child's life. It's just it kind of makes me shake my head, because a lot of them are finding, oh, well, it's really bad for both of the parents to be working. One of them kind of needs to be a nurturing system for the kids. And it's like, oh, really? Huh. So, these years and years and years of traditional family values that are so bad for modern society are actually really kind of good for modern society.
And yet trying to get that news out there through the filters, through the, the mass media,
right.
And through these, that can be difficult to get it through these sorts of filters. And that's the trick. One of the things I would say to people is, whenever you see something that's making a claim, let me just pull like something false out of the air, just like make something up, like that Greta Thunberg is Nancy Pelosi's love child or something. You know what I mean? Like, so oh, this is meme that says this. It must be true. Look, stop. And then, is this confirming a bias that you have? Maybe be skeptical of that. Okay. Then go find your own source for it, and not like, and then look what that source is. Do you recognize that website? Does it seem credible? Does it have look at the other things it's publishing? Do those seem credible? Or, because sometimes I see these satire sites that people are pushing stuff on. Yeah. It just, be less credulous, be more skeptical. Take some time to think about things. Don't pass on everything that confirms your own point of view, already. But I found that the thing that helps me the most is to cultivate the people I follow on social media to be good, reliable, level-headed people. That really has helped more than anything.
Right. Yeah, people who aren't sensationalist. That's I think that's the thing that really is starting to show through in our political system generally, is that it's so much about divisive, convoluted us versus them language that it doesn't help anybody. And what we really need to do is get back to a sense of what is right, what is true, not pointing fingers at each other about how awful that person is, but like what are we doing? What is the real issue? How are we as a nation coming together to face that issue? And if we could get that back in politics, it would be so much better. It'd be such a relief to have that back in politics, really.
I'm hearing more and more people who say things like, I just can't stand Twitter anymore because I just can't stand the way it's all about point scoring and attack and snark. And yeah, it's all of that stuff is not about building up anything. It's about pulling it apart. And it's okay to have differences of opinion. It's okay to argue, but you're always arguing in the aim of building something. We're to acknowledge you're not evil. We're both good people who love our state, our city, our country, and we're trying to do good. We just have different approaches, and we're trying to figure out how to reconcile those different approaches. Whereas what things are now is you're evil and you must be destroyed. That's sort of the default on both sides of things now. So yeah, we have to kind of, and we can't. And I think technology, for all I love technology, but technology has played a role in creating that divide over the past 10, 15 years.
Well, or if you have to be snarky, if you really just have to be snarky, then it needs to be about everybody. Like there should be no like it should be George Carlin or Samuel Clemens. Like everybody is a target. Does not matter who you are. Right, you are a target for my snark.
Like Johnny Carson was always good for that. Yeah, everybody got it equally, but everybody. You did it good naturedly. There's a like a I'm snarking, but I still love you. You know what I mean?
Right.
There was a little of that in there. Although who is the Don Rickles? You were sure he loved you actually with Don Rickles, but you know what I mean. So we need to have that. I get what you're saying. We need, if we're gonna make fun or poke fun, it has to be good natured, but it has to be equal time. Yeah, that's for sure.
Or I found, and this kind of relates, if I'm going to use that kind of tactic, and I'm not talking about in the political realm, I'm actually talking about a homily, I'll make fun of myself to make the point.
Yeah.
Right.
So like when I make fun of myself, people can relate and they can understand, but I'm not targeting any single person. In fact, I'm targeting myself, and it's I'm making fun of myself, that's nobody's going to fault me for that, but they're going to interiorly recognize that, oh, okay, I totally get his point because I do that too.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. All right. So I'm sure we'll be talking more about technology surrounding our elections and the anti-social media and all the rest as we go through the rest of the year. But this is an interesting place to talk about it right now with what happened in Iowa. So let's talk about some headlines. The first headline has to do with something that a Facebook tool that kind of came up in recent weeks, although it's been around since last August. People are now I think it's got a full worldwide rollout finally. I think that's why people are talking about it. It's called Off Facebook Activity. And what it is it shows you what third-party sites and apps share data with Facebook about you when you go to those sites and use those apps. So if I have an app on my phone that I've logged, sometimes they want you to enter your Facebook information to share what you're doing on that app to Facebook. Well, those apps will sometimes share data about you with Facebook. Okay, people don't like that, and that information is often used to build a advertising profile for you. Now, what Facebook has done with this Off Facebook Activity tool is they've given this feature called Clear History that can wipe out all the data so they say. We'll see. We'll see whether that data actually is deleted, but we'll see. But it wipes out that data, or as they say, it disconnects that data from your account, which may be more precise, meaning the data still exists. It's just not tied to you. So that's. I'd
be intrigued. I still want to know how this works. There wasn't much information in the article about how it does this, and the only real way to do it is like if you switch the person's Facebook ID, which would kind of ruin their whole shtick. So
I wonder if it creates an anonymous profile number, like account number, like anonymizes it and attributes it to that as opposed to the individual originally. So it creates essentially a shadow profile.
Right. So it's like browsing. It's like private browsing, but private Facebooking.
Right. Although at one point all that data was you, and we know that if you put enough points of data together about your activities, they can. We've talked about this before. You can often still identify you. So there's another part of the tool, and I've done that. I ran that Clear History tool, and we'll see what if you do this, you're not going to get relevant ads. I'm okay with that.
Most of us don't even care.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Most of those ads are for things I already bought anyway. It's like, come on, man.
Exactly. I don't need another trash barrel. Just bought one. Thank you. I just got new shoes. Don't need more of them. But the other part of this is the second part of the tool, which is that you can disconnect all of these third-party apps and sites from your Facebook account, and you should be cautious when doing that. I did that, and it was a bit of a pain because I have things that need to be connected to Facebook. I use tools in my work for SQPN, say there's a site called Hootsuite that allows me to manage all of our social media from a centralized location. Well, all that got disconnected, and I had to reconnect all of it. And there's other things like that, and then certain games that I play, which it's not a big deal, but it was sort of annoying. Like, oh, I can't do the thing I was doing before because it disconnected, and I have to reconnect it. Although, frankly, a game that makes me connect to Facebook in order to play it is on my short list of being deleted anyway. But nevertheless, the kids, want to play these games too. So I'm weighing things. But nevertheless, there were things that it broke that I should. So I bring this up just to kind of warn people to you go ahead and use the tools, but think about it and double check it before you go that this is actually what you want to do before making this disconnection. Everything is so tied in together these days. It's hard to make these clear decisions about how to deal with it.
Yeah, well, there was that big time period where you could log into anything using your Facebook account or using your Google account, and a lot of those still are kind of floating around. Like you're still able to stay logged into this thing because you logged in with Facebook, and some of them, if you disconnect that now, you can't reconnect to it. Because the way the app was written, the OAuth that they used was of a
older generation,
of an age, older generation, that it doesn't work now, and so you won't be able to log back in that way.
And I'll be honest, a lot of these things which was just just make it easy, log into our service using your Facebook or Google, even though we don't need to connect us to Facebook or Google. I've now switched most of those over to no thanks. I'll use a username and password and keep that in my 1Password vault. But thanks, just because I want to be disconnected.
I never have really used Facebook for that kind of login, just because Facebook is notorious with privacy issues. I don't even want to pull up my 1Password vault because, it's at that point I will just create a whole new username and password rather than link it to Facebook. Yeah.
Now Apple has this new sign-on service, which I've only just started seeing it being available in things that I use. I use it in one, and it's actually kind of nice because it's like, you want to sign in? Yeah. Do you want to give them your email? No. Okay. And you're done. Like, you're in. There's no confirmation emails. There's no, hey, you really should give us your email. Nope, you're in. You're just done. And that is really nice. I feel a lot better about that than I do about the others. I think I still will take the option of managing my own username and password, but I could see where for certain users it might be easier to just let my iPhone or whatnot take care of that for me. But we'll see how that goes. So one of the things I do on a regular basis, I actually have a reminder in my task management thing every month to go through both Google and Facebook and see what apps have I given permission to access my account, and to disconnect old ones. Because one thing to keep in mind is sometimes these services go defunct quietly and then get sold to somebody else who is not giving you service but still has access to your stuff, and you want to be careful of that. So go through and disconnect old things on a regular basis. That's if you're going to do that. All right. And then one other story we want to talk about. This is a only on the internet, sort of story. So this guy, you know how on Google Maps you have you can when you're driving around you can see where the traffic jams are, and and the way that they figure this out is all the phones of the people driving that are logged into Google Maps. They say, oh, there's a lot of them going really slow on this particular stretch. There must be a traffic jam there. So this one guy figured, I wonder what would happen if I took a little red wagon full of 99 phones, and logged in them all into different accounts and walked along empty streets. Yep, they showed up as traffic jams.
Which I have this picture of this image from Office Space when he's driving in the traffic, and there's the little guy with the walker like walking along beside him, but it's the reverse of that.
Yes, exactly. So I mean, it's a bit of he's a performance artist, so the performance art. But I get the joke. It's also a little annoying as someone who has used to regularly drive in bad traffic, especially since what that can do is can cause rerouting of traffic through areas. People will start driving through neighborhoods, could cause congestion in certain places, and could even cause emergency vehicles not to be able to get somewhere to help somebody if the traffic has been moved somewhere else. So it can be not a joke.
Well, especially if you start to get to the point where it's like a long distance truck driver just has 20 Google enabled maps running in the back of his truck at all times to keep keep
road
people
open
from getting on the same route that he's on. Oh no, Google, I don't need you to respond to me right now.
He wants to give you some advice on that.
Apparently.
Although someone did point out that Google somehow has figured out a way to have, when people are on buses, to not have the bus create a traffic jam. So if there's just a bus on the street with 40 people all logged into Google Maps, it doesn't show as a traffic jam. So they have some ability to do that, but no one's quite sure. It's a bit of a trade secret, I guess. So no one's quite sure how they're doing it and how they might be able to apply that to performance artists pulling little red wagons full of phones. I don't know. I just thought it was a funny.
I have to
bizarre
laugh
story.
because you could do that all over Cheyenne, and it would still take me no longer than 10 minutes to get from one side of the city to the other. Like, and I never pay attention to those, and I don't even know if it's really active in Cheyenne. It might be a little bit, but I mean, Wyoming, if you have you need to be able to track if they're moving cows, up the highway, and then
There you go.
That's the traffic jam.
Oh man, yes, I am so glad I don't drive into Boston anymore. That's I might move to Cheyenne just so I could experience that. All right, so we do have a little bit of feedback from last week from our show where it was our 1Password versus LastPass password manager showdown, and we had someone write in and to ask some questions. Dennis Sell sent in an email and said, for a user who's been using the native Safari password manager on iOS and the native Firefox password manager on Windows, how do we migrate to one of these options, the password managers? We're talking about hundreds of accounts, some in both places, and that task has left me feeling overwhelmed and hesitant to switch, as in the interim it wouldn't work right. So do you have any tips, and could we cover this? So we're going to talk about now. The basic answer is it's hard to move from one password manager to another, kind of on purpose, not because they're trying to lock you in, but because they want to keep the password secure. And it would be kind of bad if it was easy to move the passwords in and out.
Yeah.
So there's that. But the good news is that while 1Password and LastPass cannot import directly from Safari or Firefox, they can import what's called CSV or comma-separated files. They're sort of like Excel. The data is separated by commas. That's basically how it goes. So you have to get the passwords into a CSV, and I'll put some links in the show notes to instructions I found online on how to do that from both LastPass and 1Password. How to do that from both Firefox and Safari. That is what I meant to say. And then from there you can import them. But there's another way as well, which is if you activate LastPass or 1Password, you just start using it. Every time you let Safari or Firefox fill in the password for you, 1Password or LastPass will pop up and say, "Hey, you want me to save that for you in my service?" And so gradually it will eventually get it. And in fact, after 6 months, you may end up saying, okay, I've got all the passwords I use, and the rest are ones I don't really use all that often anyway. So I'm just going to switch over now full time and turn off the other one. So
right. And just so everybody knows, the way it does that is the password field when you're entering it is a very specific field. That's why you get the little dots that show up. And so it's not that LastPass can see it. It just sees that there's a password field there, and it has to ask your permission before it can grab any of that information out.
Right.
And I would be really surprised if they didn't make you make a new password and just say, hey, we see that you're entering a password. Would you like us to store it instead? Go ahead and enter whatever the password is that you want, and we'll put it in there. And they'll do all their magic behind the scenes that fixes it in place.
Yeah, it would be nice if LastPass uses that service. They have this ability that 1Password doesn't have to change your password sort of behind the scenes without you having to go through all the steps. It would be nice if they did that as part of that process. That'd be kind of cool. So what do you guys use for password management? Do you use a password manager? What do you use, Thomas?
I don't actually.
Okay.
I'm a junkie for really complex passwords that I change every 3 months, and I have them on a rotating cycle. So it's I'm getting to that point where there's just too many for me to keep doing this.
Okay.
But
yeah, I know there's some people who they have a system that they keep in their head, and they can create the password that they need based on that. It's like a cipher that you have
right.
that you keep mentally, which is frankly the most secure kind of password you can have is a cipher that is only exists in your head that creates a complex password. So that's interesting. How about you, Father Andrew? What do you use?
Yeah, so I definitely currently use 1Password, but before that I would do the same thing, as I'd have like a take some random sentence that I know and then take the first letter of each word and then create like a base password and then modify the ends depending on the website that I was logging into.
Interesting.
That I May the Force be with you was one of my, and I would like use the number 4 for 4 and then add a CE to it. Like it was kind of fun for a while, but it became just too much. And so then when I went to 1Password, I usually have it auto generate, and so it's got the super complex characters, and so I don't know any of my passwords anymore other than my master password.
Right. I have heard, and I'd like to test it, that a string of dictionary words, like 4 or 5 of them, is more secure than a random generated password, because there's I don't want to say flaw, but there's a pattern in how computers right now generate those random codes, random passwords.
Well, and it's not so much that, it's just a matter of brute force. I can, if your password's only 7-8 characters long, I can brute force it a lot faster than a 22 character long thing. And it really ticks me off when I have to go to a website that requires me to have an uppercase, lowercase, number, and symbol in my password, which makes it harder to remember than a 22 character long password that I can come up with and have for all of my stuff. They just don't want to. I don't know. I really don't know why the system is set up that way. But there's a whole XKCD comic about it, which I'll share with you guys. Make sure that correct horse stapler battery. That's
yes.
But
that's actually one of the things that triggered my memory of that. The other thing, which I think I mentioned in the last week, was the whole problem of you can only have an 8-character long password. Like, that's the limit. It's like, why? This is for my bank. Yeah. I want a secure password. So anyway. And then just as a follow-up of some news, we mentioned last week that LastPass has a native Mac app, that a desktop app for the Mac, and didn't have one for Windows, whereas 1Password has native apps. Well, LastPass has announced they're actually dropping support for the native Mac app, and so you will only be able to use it in the browser through a universal web app. So that's just some food for thought on however you want to take that. All right, so let's maybe move on to our picks of the week. And first I'll throw it to you, Father Andrew. What's your pick of the week?
So my pick of the week, I wanted to do an Echo Show because I just got one of those, and then I realized that you just did that as a pick of the week. So so a friend of mine actually got me a Globe Electric Wi-Fi enabled smart bulb, which connects to my Echo Show. So that was kind of a fun thing to do. But it's basically a light bulb that you plug into your lamp or just a normal socket. But it will, when you plug it in and turn it on, you connect to it with your phone using the Globe app, and then you connect to the light bulb, tell it to connect to the Wi-Fi network, and then you have complete control over that light bulb through the app. You can change the color, you can set a schedule on when it will turn on and turn off. You can do cool things like, have it be a theme sort of color. So I think right now mine is on ocean, so it runs through a different cycle of blues. And you can create your own. You can
do red alert.
Do all sorts. You can, red alert. But you can control it from anywhere. So some good, useful, practical applications. For me, I have it in my office, so I actually have it turn on when the office opens, and I have it turn off when the office closes. So it kind of matches, and I don't have to worry about it. But you could use this sort of thing for put it in your living room on the lamp. And so when you're off on vacation, you can still have it turn on and off automatically to let, make it look like your house is still being occupied and deter, any potential robbers who think your house might be empty, so you can do those sorts of things. And it's just kind of a cool thing. I'd never played with a smart light bulb before, and it's quite fun, actually.
I warn you, it's addictive. I have smart bulbs all over my house now, and actually the away thing is really cool. Like the when you're on vacation, because you used to have the old ones, those old you plug in and it has the timer that turns, and you hope that the power doesn't go out and screw up the clock. But with the smart bulbs, you can set like random, turn on somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes, but like on certain ones you can do it 10 and 20 minutes before sunset, or that sort of thing. So it's kind of neat. This is nice because it doesn't require a hub, and that's something the Philips Hue bulbs require is a hub. So it's nice. And a 2-pack is somewhere around it's like 30 something.
I thought it was $40, so about $20 a bulb, unfortunately. But
that's actually pretty good for bulbs that you can do color. So that's
okay.
That's actually not bad. Multicolor bulbs. The Hue ones are more expensive, but they're the brand name. Very good. Thomas, what's your pick of the week?
So I manage a server for a bunch of kids that play Minecraft, and they pester me constantly about, oh, I got banned, or oh, I have this problem, or oh, the server's down, and I'll be off on vacation for the weekend or something like that. And I am not one that says you should do anything while you are away from work, but I like these kids and I like keeping this server up and running for them. So I found this really great secure shell software for my phone. It's called Juice SSH. And it's an Android only thing. So sorry for you Mac users. But for Android, it's fantastic. You can store your credentials and log into a server remotely and do most of the stuff that you can do from a server pretty effectively on your phone. So I can go in and manage the server. If it's down, I can restart the instance of Minecraft for them, or I can unban them after they've banned themselves by accident. I found it to be really effective, and it's one of those things that I was not expecting out of an SSH app for Android. But I use it a lot. I actually end up doing a lot of stuff on it.
I think I saw them using this on Mr. Robot, actually.
Oh, possibly, yeah. It's the kind of thing that you could definitely use it runs a secure shell for the server, and you can keep tokens on it. If you want to upgrade to the paid version, the free version does really everything you need it to do, and the paid version just adds levels of comfort so that you can store a whole bunch of different stuff, more than you would normally need for, if you manage multiple servers or if you have to log into several different things. That's really what you would want to pay for the upgrade for. But even then, it's only $5 for the paid version, and that's it's not a service fee. It's just $5 for the paid version.
Cool. I think there's a iOS app that does similar, but I don't have a use for it, so I'm not certain. But I think it's called Prompt, which it gives you a command line prompt. And you can do SSH from it. Pretty sure, but I'd have to look it up. But that's a good one. That's very geeky, which I like.
Yes, very, very geeky.
So my pick, first a disclaimer. I got this as a review unit, so I didn't purchase these myself. But so take that as you may. But I'm honest about it. If I didn't like it, I wouldn't recommend it. But we got the Molecule air filters, and I have to say I have a family of asthmatics and allergists, people with allergy. And we live in a place, an old house that gets mold, despite my best efforts. And frankly, I'm constantly changing the air filters in the air system, the heat and AC system. So we have a dust and pollution problem here, and we've had them going for about a week now. We have the full size one that's in the main part of the house. We have a sort of an open cape, so it's not a big house. It's like 1,400 square feet. And then in my home office, I've got an Air Mini, which is a smaller version. And so far, they do a really good job. Like when we cook, if anything smokes at all, the whole house is just smoked for hours usually. And then when we go out and you come home, you're like, hey, that's right, we had curry yesterday for dinner. Now it really clears the air. I mean, doesn't clear it like so that, I don't smell anything. But like there are times I walk into my home office in the morning, especially if I've kept the door closed, and I come in and it just smells like when you walk outside and the air is fresh. I mean, it's got that tang to it, that fresh air tang. And the nice thing is the Mini is silent. It has to be if it's going to be in the office, because I do this. I don't want people to hear it on the podcast, and it's really quiet. And then the other one it can be louder, but it can be quieter. You can set it, to be silent, and it has an app for your phone, of course. Everything does now, and but the app you can control the speed, so boost it or silent or whatever. But it also will remind you when the filters need to be changed. And the filters have a 6-month life. Actually, I'm sorry, there are 2 filters in the big one, and one of them has a 3-month life and one of them has a 6-month life. So and then it can warn you, you need to order a new one and get that shipped to you and all that sort of stuff. So I've been happy with it. They're expensive. They're not cheap, but if you need to have clean air for being able to breathe, and I'm looking forward to having a spring where everyone in my house doesn't have a bronchial infection or constant asthma attacks. If you have a need for that, this might be something to check out. So take a look at it. So it's the Molecule, and I get we don't have affiliate links or anything like that. I just got a review unit, and that was that. So, all right. So those are our picks of the week. So before we finish up, I do want to take a moment to, as always, thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including this time Michael O., Francisc B., Kenny E., James N., and Eric B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. Could you join them, please, by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of our discussion about election technology and the other issues we brought up? You can let us know by going to sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, which is facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to technology@sqpn.com. And of course, I'll put links to everything from our discussion and to our picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. Remember to like us on social media. As bad as social media can be, we're still there trying to spread some light and some happiness and joy. So follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, where we're at SQPN, and certainly leave us comments, like and share, and all that sort of thing. Until next time, Thomas Sanjurjo, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Technology.
It was great to be here.
Father Andrew Canstetter, thank you as well.
Always a pleasure, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.